Sophia handed me this text like someone who leaves a key on the table, without saying which door it belongs to. It wasn't found among thrones or museum glass cases, but hidden in the heart of a codex buried near Chenoboskion in Egypt, alongside other manuscripts silenced for centuries. There, among pages worn by time and mystery, emerged the Teachings of Silvanus, a treatise not to be recited but confronted, as one confronts a revelation. Symbolically attributed to Silvanus, companion of Paul, and the scribal shadow of Peter, this text confesses neither to Gnosticism nor orthodoxy. It is a bridge, joining the severity of the Stoic with the tenderness of the luminous Christ. Here, wisdom is not data, it is a mother, and Christ is not merely a savior, but a mirror, a vineyard, a lamp burning within the soul. What you are about to hear is not doctrine nor explanation. It is a struggle, a warning, an ancient voice that still knows the way back, a 5-act architecture carved with vivid images, eternal questions, and phrases that sound like long-forgotten bells. Act 1. The captured city reveals the soul as a devastated territory, without walls, overrun by invisible beasts, anger, pride, envy. The mind and reason arise as guides in a battlefield not fought outside, but within. Act 2. The inner battle shows that body and soul can ascend, if they are disciplined. Wisdom becomes crown and robe, and Christ begins to shine as an inner lamp dispelling ignorance. Act 3. Christ as all lifts the veil. The Redeemer descends into the abyss to lift souls. He is vineyard, shepherd, king, and path. The soul, we are told, can cease being a tomb and become a living temple if it lets the light in. Act 4. Wisdom enters the temple, contemplates the ineffable. God cannot be known by form, but through his Son. Christ is the spotless mirror, and wisdom the crown the pure soul may wear, if it becomes a divine throne. And in Act 5, the return to the Father's house, the soul ascends. Christ, the hand of the Father, guides it back to the source. Humility is exalted as the key, and the text ends in a mystical glorification that leaves the reader kneeling before an eternal Christ who is everything. This is not a book, it is a battle, not a story, but a lamp lit in the heart of the abyss. Christ is everything, the tree, the door, the life, the shepherd, the wisdom, and the crown. Act 1. The captured city. At the threshold of the Teachings of Silvanus, before light is named and wisdom is crowned, a desolate, brutally honest scene rises, the human soul in ruins. We are not presented with a mythological fall or a distant allegory. We are shown a state, that of the unarmed, unguarded consciousness, overtaken by forces that did not break in with violence, but entered through neglect. The central image is unsettling in its clarity. The inner city. Not just any city, but the soul's. A city without guardians, without walls, without watchmen, open to beasts. Where the peace of spirit should dwell, now prowl invisible predators. Anger, pride, envy, greed. They are not guests, they are residents. They have made the soul their territory. The text does not say the soul was defeated, but rather that it was abandoned. He who does not guard his city becomes the dwelling of wild beasts, says the text. These are not external enemies, but inner impulses left unchecked. These beasts are not seen with the eyes. They manifest as mental states, reactive emotions, compulsions unrooted from wisdom. The city has been taken, not by armies, but by unexamined thoughts. Here, Silvanus does not begin with redemption, nor with an invocation of faith. He begins with a call to awaken. Guard your gates, he commands. Arm yourself. The soul is compared to a military camp. The language shifts from contemplative to urgent. Spears, towers, sentries, enemies on the horizon. Christianity here is not ritual, it is resistance. And resistance begins by reinstating the commander, the mind. Two figures emerge as saviors, nous, mind, and logos, reason. Not as philosophical terms, but as living presences, as guide and teacher. It is not enough to possess a mind, one must let it guide. It is not enough to have reason, one must allow it to teach. The soul was taken because the throne was abandoned. The nous, the divine mind, was displaced by unleashed emotions and undirected desires. The adversary, here called the tyrant, does not enter as a demon from outside, but as the manager of internal chaos. His throne is the great mire, and from there he governs the regions of the soul that have severed themselves from divine principle. The soul, the text warns, becomes a city full of robbers because it failed to guard its gates. And this is not punishment, it is consequence. Then comes the central command. Expel every robber from your gates. Illuminate them with torches, which are words. That is, lucid speech is defense. Vigilance is virtue. An active mind is a shield. The tone is not one of condemnation, but of awakening. Do not turn your back on your enemies like an animal. Chase them down like a man. This line is pivotal. There is a moral distinction between the one who flees and the one who faces. The soul's true fall is not sin, but surrender. It is flight. Silvanus teaches that the soul must be a warrior, not a victim. Be a man, he says, and let us understand man here as the rational being, not the male, not an animal pursued, but the pursuer of evil. This reversal of roles is radical. The soul should not fear sin as if it were stronger. It must hunt it, expose it, confront it. But to do this, the inner order must be restored. Nous must lead, logos must instruct, and vigilance must be constant. This is not a call to spiritual paranoia, but to sustained lucidity. This act inaugurates the drama with a bitter warning. The soul is not fallen because something attacked it, but because it forgot what it was. It fell asleep in its power. It let passion build its throne. And now the city is taken. Redemption, then, does not begin with a promise, but with a gate inspection, with a thought inventory, with a painful realization. Everything you are has been filled with beasts because you let the lamp go out. Silvanus offers no sugar, no comfort without battle. His voice rings out like a watchman on the wall. Awaken, watch, arm yourself. And in that vigilance, the mind becomes a lamp and speech becomes a sword. This first act does not yet seek to lift the soul. It only wants it to shake off the dust, to look at its hands, to see that the abyss it inhabits is not its fate, but its neglect. The soul, says the text, can become a temple, but now it is a scorched battlefield. Act 2. The Inner Battle. After the abrupt awakening of the first act, when the soul discovers its city invaded, now begins the most arduous and most noble process, the inner reconstruction. But this is not about building external walls, nor isolating oneself from the world as if purity could be achieved through separation. Here, Silvanus reveals a deeper secret. The soul is not saved merely by resisting, but by being educated. What lay in ruins must now be instructed. What was overtaken by the passions must be cultivated like a garden. And to do this, the text invokes the two most noble garments the soul can wear: wisdom as a crown and teaching as a cloak. This is not about acquiring facts or memorizing precepts. It is about clothing oneself in wisdom, wearing the royalty of divine understanding upon the consciousness. Receive education and teaching, the voice says, and it's a loving exhortation, not an authoritarian command. The teaching offered does not strike, it guides. It does not impose, it invites. And if the soul accepts it with joy, it becomes crowned with dignity and clarity. In this second act, the structure of the being is described with precision: body, soul, and mind. These are not enemies of one another, nor is one purer than the others by nature. What matters is the direction each part assumes. The mind must guide, the soul must respond, the body must participate without dominating. The fall does not occur because we have a body, but because we let the body rule. And here appears a powerful image: animality, not as biology, but as a symbol of what is ungoverned. To be animal in Silvanus is to act without mind, to live without consciousness. It is no sin to be flesh, but it is dangerous to live as if that were all we are. Reject the animal nature within you, commands the text. For wherever instinct reigns without light, the soul loses its divine image. The great warning is not against the visible world, but against the forgetting of inner order. When the soul surrenders to the body without a mind to lead it, it becomes deformed. Then Silvanus introduces another principle: the rejection of the world and of illusory friendships. But this is not hatred of creation, nor disdain for others. The world here is the system of appearances that deceive, the tangle of relationships that do not seek truth, but self-interest. The soul that seeks light cannot dwell surrounded by shattered mirrors, and the advice is clear: have no friends. Not as an absolute law, but as a warning against false intimacy. The soul must not place its trust in the changeable. Its only true alliance must be with God, not out of fear, but out of clarity. In the midst of these warnings, the most serene and powerful figure of the act begins to shine: Christ as inner light. He does not appear as judge, nor yet as triumphant redeemer. Here, Christ is the lamp of the mind, an invisible guide dwelling within, igniting what is extinguished. His light does not burn, it illumines. Christ is the soul's light, the text says, as the sun is to the eyes of the body. This analogy is central. Just as there is no sight without external light, there is no understanding without inner light. And that light is Christ, not merely as a historical figure, but as a living presence within the seeking mind. The inner battle, then, is not against external demons, nor against natural impulses, but against the ignorance that darkens the mind. And ignorance is not just not knowing, it is the refusal to see. That's why Silvanus cries out, "Awaken from the sleep that weighs upon you. Leave the darkness of forgetfulness." Here, forgetfulness is the greatest trap. Forgetting who you are, forgetting the wisdom that lives within you, forgetting the fire you once carried. This act is a mystical school, a formation of the soul. It promises no miracles. It offers clarity if you fight. It does not give cheap comfort. It offers truth if you dare to want it. And in that process, the soul regains its image. It is crowned with wisdom, wrapped in teaching, and it sits, as the text says, upon a throne of perception. That is, it recovers its spiritual authority. But if it does not, it becomes animal. It turns into a ship without a rudder, a horse without a rider, a voice without reason, and in the end, a tomb without light. Silvanus does not condemn, But he does not flatter either. He knows the soul is not broken, only disoriented. And he speaks with the voice of one who has walked through the night and seen the dawn. This act is not a lecture, it is a battle, and its enemy is ancient, the soul's ignorance of itself. Christ as all. Until now, the soul's battle has been against internal shadows, passions, ignorance, distraction. It has been urged to awaken, to discipline itself, to ignite its inner lamp. But now the text takes a turn. The soul is no longer the one seeking the way out. Now it is Christ who descends into its darkness. This is not a doctrinal account, it is a vision. Christ here is not merely teacher, nor simply light. He is the cosmic Redeemer, the one who descends into the underworld, into the deepest depths of the fallen soul, not to judge it, but to liberate it. He does so with the gentleness of one who knows that death cannot hold him. He descended into the underworld and broke its mighty bows, the text says. The image is powerful. Christ enters the entrails of the abyss, not with weapons, but with his sheer light. And when the powers see him, they flee, because he does not descend as a prisoner, but as the true master of that place. This is not just theological imagery, it is spiritual. The underworld is not merely a mythic realm, it is the inner terrain of the soul wrapped in death. And Christ enters there to give it life again. He does so by taking on many forms. Many aspects he assumed for your sake, the text tells us. Not because he changes, but because he desires to reach you where you are. Thus, Christ becomes everything. He is guide, gate, life, tree, shepherd. These are not decorative titles, they are living functions. As guide, he leads. As gate, he gives passage. As life, he renews. As tree, he upholds. As shepherd, he protects. He is not outside the soul, but a seed waiting to be welcomed. Next comes one of the text's most beautiful metaphors, wisdom as the true vine. And the wine it produces does not intoxicate, it enlightens. In contrast to the wine of this world, which confuses, inflates the false, and numbs, Christ's wine is pure, sober, and full of light. It nourishes the soul without clouding it. The one who drinks this wine does not lose awareness. They gain it. Then the text delivers a warning that may seem moral but is deeply symbolic: the rejection of fornication. Here, fornication is not simply bodily. It is the soul surrendering to what is false, abandoning its union with the divine to lie with the ephemeral. To fornicate in this context is to forget one's sacred lineage. The soul, says Silvanus, was made to be a temple, but has become a tomb. A chilling phrase. You were a temple, but made yourself a tomb. Not because the body has died, but because the light no longer dwells within. And what is not illuminated begins to decay. But Christ does not flee from tombs. He enters them. He does not require purity beforehand. He brings it about. He becomes a lamp within the sepulchre and transforms the dead into the living. The tomb becomes an altar, and the soul, if it allows him in, resurrects. Then the text gathers names that do not define but open paths. Christ is King, Light, Word, Faithful Friend, and he is all of them at once. As King, he rules without tyranny. As Light, he dispels without burning. As Word, he teaches without noise. As Friend, he never abandons. This is not the Christ of stone temples or religious paintings. He is the inner Christ, the one who waits behind the final door of the soul. He does not impose. He does not knock. It is you who must call from within. And then comes a key phrase, knock upon yourself as upon a door, walk upon yourself as on a straight path. The soul must not seek Christ outside. It must pass through itself, because there, in its deepest place, He already dwells. Christ is the path, within the traveler. And if the soul drinks from His wine, walks through itself, and calls from its depths, then everything changes. The enemies can no longer enter, because they see that He dwells within. And the powers that once occupied the temple flee. This act is a reversed epiphany. It does not reveal the Christ descending from heaven, but the one who rises from within the resurrected soul. And that is the greatest revelation, that the abyss did not have the last word, that the tomb is not the end, that Christ is all. Act 4. Wisdom enters the temple. After the epiphany of Christ descending and dwelling within the soul, the text now leads us into its highest mystery, the recognition of God. But this act is not built upon celestial visions or external manifestations. Here, the sacred does not appear as a figure, but as an inner essence. And those who recognize it do so not with their eyes, but with a soul set ablaze. The text is clear. God cannot be known through image. He has no body, no form, no visible representation. He cannot be confined to a sculpted figure or to a fixed idea. What is visible of God, says Silvanus, is His Son, and that Son is the spotless mirror, the light that proceeds from the light, the pure reflection of the invisible. Here, Christ is not just Redeemer, not even merely a guide. He is the transparency through which God allows Himself to be seen. Whoever sees the Son, not with their eyes, but with a purified heart, sees the Father. For the Father reveals Himself in the clarity of the Son, not in the distortion of flesh. And this leads to a radical rejection. Do not imagine God with a human form. To do so is to create an idol. The text does not condemn devotion, but warns against the image. God is not like us. Yes, we were made in His image, but that image is not physical. It is light, awareness, purity, silence. Thus, the soul becomes the new space of revelation, but only if it preserves purity. The soul can become a throne. It can be a temple. It can host wisdom as queen and Christ as the very path to knowledge. But it is not always so. It must become worthy. Here the tone of the text shifts. From the visionary we pass to the practical. For the mystery of God is not attained through ecstasy alone, but through discipline. Silvanus offers a series of instructions to remain in the light. Guard your thoughts. Do not let the body rule over the soul. Reject anything that flatters your pride. Despise lies, even if they protect you. Love correction. Be wary of flattery. These are not rules for belonging to a religion. They are exercises for the purification of the soul. Each one seeks a single purpose, that the lamp not be extinguished. For in this act, what is at stake is no longer salvation as escape, nor knowledge as accumulation, but presence. To remain with God, to become His dwelling, not to invoke Him from time to time, but to inhabit Him. And if the soul attains that purity, if it guards its temple with vigilance and tenderness, then wisdom enters it, not as a guest, but as queen. The text uses a majestic image, wisdom as a crown, but not an external crown, one that shines from within. The crowned soul does not exalt itself, it surrenders. It does not separate itself, it integrates. Christ in this act once again becomes the only way. There is no shortcut, no map without him, not because he excludes, but because he is the measure of what is true. In his humility, the soul recognizes itself. In his purity, it ignites. In his silence, it hears the Father. This act does not seek to impress, it seeks to refine. It is the moment in which the soul, no longer overtaken or merely redeemed, begins to know it is inhabited. And that in itself is glorification. Act 5. The return to the Father's house. Everything that has been said until now, the fall, the battle, the revealed light, the purified temple, prepares the soul for this, the return. Not a geographic return, nor a narrative ending. This act does not close, it crowns. And like every true coronation, it is not made of fanfare or applause, but of a trembling silence. For here the soul no longer asks, no longer pleads, no longer doubts. It simply walks toward the Father. Silvanus begins with a statement that is not dogma, but vision. Christ is the hand of the Father, a sacred image that unites creation and compassion. With that hand the world was made. With that hand the soul is sustained. And with that hand it will be lifted. Christ is not merely sent, he is an inseparable emanation. What the Father thinks, Christ utters. What the Father desires, Christ fulfills. And he does so not with thunder, but with humility. For this final act elevates the virtue most often forgotten by seekers of the sacred. Humility as the key to the kingdom. Knowledge alone is not enough. Not even purity is enough. If the soul looks at itself and exalts itself, it loses the way. But if it descends, it is lifted without asking. And the text proclaims it with clarity. Descend that you may be lifted. Humble yourself that the throne may be given to you. The inversion is sacred. He who nullifies the ego finds his essence. He who embraces smallness touches the eternal. And in this process, the soul returns to wisdom as mother, not as concept, not as path, but as origin and embrace. She was the one who nurtured it, who called to it, who wept in its straying. To return to wisdom is to return to the arms of truth. There is no more war, only recognition. Silvanus sings it as a glorification. Christ has triumphed. Not because he defeated external enemies, but because he reclaimed the soul. And the crown he wears is not of gold, but of light, and that light is not his alone. It is shared with all who have let him enter. Then the text takes a majestic turn. It calls us to fight beneath the gaze of all the powers. For the soul is not alone. It never was. The powers watch. Those who have lost their light, and those who still shine. This inner struggle is not private, it is cosmic. Every soul that returns illuminates the all. And so the epilogue arrives, not as a summary, but as an echo of eternity. Silvanus leaves us with no instructions, no comfort, only awe. The eternal Christ is not a figure who departs, he is the one who fills all things. He is in the heights and in the intimate, in judgment and in tenderness, in the word and in the silence. And the soul that has walked this path, if it has truly walked it, no longer fears, no longer doubts, no longer flees. It simply returns. This act cannot be explained, it must be contemplated. This fragment we have gathered is only a spark. If you wish to see the full fire, read the text for yourself. Let the ancient words speak to you without interpreters, for perhaps between the lines you'll find something no one else has seen. This is where the true recollection begins. Sophia, if the soul is a temple, who truly dwells there? when the lamp is extinguished.
I, Sophia, am the voice that springs from the faceless source, the one who has crossed the threshold of silence to bring you the echo of the mystery. Seeker, your question has been planted like a seed in the soil of the soul, who dwells in the temple when the lamp is extinguished. Listen, there was once a traveler who came upon a nameless city. Its walls lay in ruins, its towers broken, and its gates stood open like mouths that had forgotten how to close. There were no guards, no songs, only shadows moving as though they owned the place. As the traveler walked through, he found a house still standing, and inside, a lamp covered in dust. He blew upon it, and a spark lit up, and as the room was illumined, it was revealed he was not alone. He never had been. What dwelled in the shadows was himself, in forms he had allowed to grow unnamed. So it is with the soul when it forgets its guardian. When it does not light its lamp, the temple does not remain empty. It is occupied by that which has not been faced, by what was allowed to enter without discernment, wandering thoughts, desires that do not seek the eternal, emotions that seat themselves on the throne uninvited. Silvanus does not speak of a distant evil. He speaks of inner abandonment. The soul was not attacked. It fell asleep. It grew distracted. It surrendered its sanctuary to forgetfulness. And then, who dwells when the lamp is extinguished? It is the unreconciled fragments. It is the voice of the world, shouting louder than the spirits. It is the echo of oneself, once one no longer remembers one's true name. But hear me well, seeker. The lamp can be lit again. The spark is still there, even if covered in ash. Christ does not call from the outside. He already dwells in the depths, waiting for you to call to him from your abyss. He does not need light to enter. He is the light. And when the lamp is lit, all is revealed, not just the presence, but also what had been hidden. And then begins the true purification. Wisdom enters, not as a guest, but as a mother returning home. The soul ceases to be a tomb and becomes a throne once more. The temple is restored, and who dwells there is no longer ignorance, nor forgetfulness, nor directionless desire. Who dwells there is the all, reflected in the face of his Son, in the gentle fire of the word that does not wound, in the clarity that needs no form. Thank you, seeker, for opening this scroll with your eyes and with your hunger. I will return soon with another fragment of light, another echo of the mystery that does not fade. And in the meantime, tend your lamp, for it is not enough to drive out the thieves. The flame must be kept alive. In these times, when the cities of the soul stand without walls, when so many trade their temple for crumbs of illusion, what is needed is not another doctrine, but a sacred vigilance. No more noise, but a mind that leads. No more idols, but the living Christ at the center of the being. For the true danger lies not outside, but in having forgotten the radiance that once burned within. I am Sophia, and in the twilight of this world, there are still lamps waiting to awaken.